You ever played a Wii game and thought that it looked blurry? Yeah, it's standard definition, but that's not the problem. 480p can look really good, but every single Wii game has a blur to it. So why is that? Well, it comes down to a number of reasons, and we can address them ourselves. I'd say there's three main problems with the Wii's image quality. The first is the component output is just rather cheap. There are alternatives out there, like using a SCART cable through a RetroTink or getting an HDMI mod, but to be honest, this is kind of the least of all its problems, so let's not worry about this too much. For this video, I'm using a Wii U in Wii mode. So the big two problems are actually software related, and the biggest of the bunch is the D-Flicker filter. The D-Flicker filter was intended for CRTs, but for whatever reason, it's on for everything, despite the Wii supporting 480p. So what does this do? Well, it gives you a giant blur on everything. Here's standard untreated Twilight Princess out of the box, and here's the exact same game, but with D-Flicker forced off. Can you see a difference? If you can't, then you might be on a phone or something, I don't know, because it's a huge difference, look at that! Links are blur usually, and now we can see its pretty little pixels. The second problem is not only is every Wii game given an ugly filter, but they're also stretched. See, Wii games don't fill a 16:9 screen, or at least they shouldn't. The end image you get outputted from the console is 720 by 480, but that's not actually what's being rendered. The maximum size for horizontal pixels is 640, not 720, and so what happens is it just stretches the image. So again, let's use Twilight Princess. Here is the game in its standard form, and here it is before being stretched and without the filter. Yeah, this is what the console's rendering, and then it just goes. So not only is there an ugly filter that blurs everything, but they're outright stretching the image, making it even blurrier. This is why Wii's image quality is so poor. So how are we doing all this? Well, anyone who's done Wii Homebrew probably knows about USB Loader GX. The primary function is to load backup games, but it does way more than that. First up, I recommend having an up-to-date version as there's some features that were added fairly recently. I'm using version 3.0, revision 1281. So in the loader settings, you'll find D-Flicker filter, which you can turn to either off safe or off extended. I tend to use off extended. And then right below that, video width with frame buffer. And by the way, despite this being a backup launcher, you can boot your disk-based games from USB Loader GX as well. The disk icon is right up here. And now with these features turned on, every single Wii game can look as good as it can possibly look. Here's Super Smash Bros. Brawl without any modifying. And here it is now. I think this is a massive difference. Here's Mario Kart Wii. Look how blurry it was beforehand, but now you can see the pixels clearly. Everything's of course still in its native resolution, we're not using more power, we're just disabling the stuff that they for some reason enabled. And it's not just 3D games either. Games like Kirby's Epic Yarn also had this filter, and were also stretched. I suppose it begs the question of, is the stretched version the intended aspect ratio? And I think that differs from aspect to aspect and game to game. Some developers may have taken the stretch into account, and others may not have. But either way, it'll still be damaging the pixels no matter what. Some 2D elements like HUDs may look more circular without or with the frame buffer. Really depends on the game, but either way, it is so much more clear this way. And one example I found really funny was Resident Evil 4, because if you force on the frame buffer, it launches in 4:3. And that's because Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition, despite being advertised as widescreen, isn't really widescreen. They aren't rendering more pixels, they've just zoomed in on a 4:3 image, and it doesn't even properly fill the display. So if you force the frame buffer on, you get the original 4:3 result, which I find amusing. Ha ha ha! But even if you prefer the screen stretched, you've gotta use the D-Flicker. It is a game changer. In previous versions of USB Loader GX, this wouldn't work with 480p content, but it does now. So yeah, this is essentially perfect now. We can play a bunch of Wii games in their purest form on original hardware. For me personally, the Wii's one of my favorite systems of all time. The library's so diverse and interesting, there's games you just won't find anywhere else. And while some waggle may have aged a bit, the pointer controls are still so innovative. And to be able to play the entire library in this clarity is a game changer. So I won't ramble too much longer, but please check this out yourself and see Wii games the way they are meant to be seen. Love you all! Mwah! We'll catch you later. Bye! Thanks for watching, everyone. If you're a fan of the channel, you probably know I'm a massive Wii fan, so this is going to change how I capture Wii footage from now on. We've got a bunch of really cool videos coming up, some really big ones too from both me and Derek. So I hope you look forward to those, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for supporting us, and we love you all.